Somehow my channel attracted a lot of attention for straight pull rifles. I think that's because initially, I guess I was making some videos about straight pull rifles, and people were writing me, and especially from Canada and from the UK too, and other places. Why don't you talk about the Ross rifle? So, as you'll see, we went in the mountains and shot a Ross rifle. And I may as well get right into it. It's kind of an interesting video. If you stick with it, it's worth it probably. This is a Ross rifle. So, there are YouTube videos that are more historically minded, let's say, in fairness than mine. I should probably study all the details. Anyway, I can read this off the receiver to you. It says Ross Rifle Company, Quebec, Canada, 1905, patented. So this is a very unique action, and you can see how, well, hopefully you could tell I opened it more or less effortlessly. You can see the locking lugs are not solid locking lugs. That's not actually how this whole story started out, but I'll tell you about this rifle first before I forget what I'm saying. I've owned this not for too long, and it was sold to me as an unknown Ross rifle, which never scares me off because so I took a chamber casting and did all that stuff. Anyway, this is marked, and for our viewers in Switzerland, which is a great hunting and firearms country, this is marked Bern, which is a city, and no, I'm sorry, I'm getting that wrong. This is from Zurich, and the gun maker is Bern, B-E-R-N-H, Mueller. Bern Mueller from Zurich. And if you punch that in, the last name is spelled M-U-L-L-E-R, and over the U are the two dots. That's umlaut in that language. Anyway, it doesn't matter if you do or don't, but I did. And he invented all kinds of fantastic rifles and did a wonderful job with this Ross rifle. So as it turns out, this Ross, you can see how slick this operation is. And before I get too far into it, everybody will say, well, the Ross is a dangerous rifle, and if you assemble it wrong, it can do bad things. Well, if you assemble any mechanism wrong, it can do bad things. If you assemble any firearm wrong, it can do bad things. So that never scared me off of the Ross. Just put the guns together the way they're supposed to be put together, and they'll be fine. And that's true of the Ross. I've never had an issue. 7x65R is the good choice of cartridge that Mr. Mueller made. I hope that's right. Mueller or Muller? No, Mueller. 7x65R. So this started out probably as a 280 Ross, and the 280 Ross, you can punch that in far ahead of its time. Straight pull rifle. I'm not sure if this was stocked by Herr Mueller or somebody else, but it's very slick and very comfortable. And whenever you see this shape on a pistol grip, you can know beforehand that it's going to be a very comfortable rifle to shoot because it's an open grip. It's not a straight grip because it's not a bad idea. The Winchester 984 we all know and love, but it's not a bad idea to have something that you can pull the rifle toward you and not slip. And the straight grip, which would be missing this piece, would be like that. Anyway, I was shooting this in the mountains, and I shot it a lot more than we filmed. And it's actually, I would have to say, magnificent. Just about every way. Sights are great. You can see the sights are they remind me always of an M14. You can see the wings, around there's no danger here to anybody. And yeah, it just lines up perfectly, and with that open grip, it's just about ideal. Anyway, as you know, I've hunted all over Canada, as you would expect, and well, aside from fantastic hunting country, what a great people, really. If they ever, you know, were unleashed, so to speak, there'd be no limit to what they could accomplish, because the country has, all I could see was space and natural resources and amazing people, but somehow contained. Anyway, it always reminded me of that expression, cry havoc, and maybe one day something will happen. Anyway, this is a 303 Ross. You can see this action is notably different from the 280. It's going to be tricky to do this, but I'll do my best. I'll set the 280 Ross, and you can check all these things, but you can see the action length is quite different. So this is the military rifle in 303 British. And again, I invite you to look at the historical videos and books and whatnot that describe all the details. But Sir Charles Ross, by some means, decided to come up with this. It's got a great flip-up aperture sight. Decided to come up with this straight pull bolt rifle. In the end, partly because of that possibility of assembling it wrong and it became dangerous, the Ross kind of gradually disappeared and the Lee Enfield won out. And that was probably the right decision, I would have to say. But that doesn't mean that the Ross rifle isn't an amazing rifle. I never have any question in my mind, because I put the rifles back together the way they should be put together. Actually, I don't take them apart generally in the first place, which for you young, those of you that are younger shooters, you write me a lot. And I know I'm a broken record. There's no need to take a bolt apart unless there's something wrong or broken. There are many ways of cleaning parts, and this obsession some people have, which is fine if that's what you need to do. But there's really no need to take all these things apart. Some people buy a perfectly fine rifle and first of all disassemble it until it's unrecognizable, and then either assemble it wrong or they can't assemble it at all. Just nobody buys a car and takes it into small pieces, I hope. But somehow with guns it's different. I very rarely take a bolt apart, like that. How dirt just doesn't get into the bolt. Anyway, I'm a broken record. So this is the military version. There are all kinds of unique features, very intelligent things that Sir Charles Ross, I hope I have the name right, incorporated into the Ross rifle, and it's definitely a fast action. I did some primitive testing, and the Lee Enfield is almost as fast, arguably faster, because it locks on closing, so it flies open on its own. The Ross is very slick and very unique. I think a lot could be done with this action. Anyway, I collect bolts too, so this is the 1910 bolt. You can see with those segmented locking lugs. It's kind of a cool bolt, and not easy to find, so when I see them I buy them. And you can see there's some kind of, this one's interesting, it's kind of case color hardening. And oh, I'm glad that happened. Did you see how the bolt head jumped in? So this is one of the most annoying features of this, not just the Ross, but I do believe that Sir Charles, and maybe he'll contact me somehow and tell me I'm wrong, but I think that there's something between this Ross rifle, and here I'll set this down, and here's there, see it closes, and that's, so you're a soldier in some muddy ditch sacrificing your life and limb, and this thing closes and you have to somehow get this to stay put. All that clumsiness is not just me. It's hard to get it to stay put, and then you're supposed to feed it back into the action. There, I got it to stay, but it's unstable. Look at this. You just a tiny touch and it goes in. And it's the same with this Steyr. And I've owned quite a few of these, and I know some of you have as well. And it's the same thing with the Steyr. Now the Steyr has the two big Mauser style locking lugs, and I chose this bolt deliberately. I have a half dozen of these bolts. This one at least stays put for a few seconds, but it does the same thing. If you turn it, there it's gone in. And that, yeah, I may not try to get it to balance and stick. No, I won't bother. I got it to balance and stick initially. So that's the Model 10, 1910. Here's the Steyr, which you can look up straight pull. I do believe that Sir Charles, for all his brilliance, did get some ideas from the Steyr, which is a great rifle as well. Beautifully made bolts, by the way. And I'll just set this one down. And here's the 1905 Ross. Now you can see even more familiar ground. The older Ross, the original Ross, has just two locking lugs and is very similar, I think anyway, to the Steyr. Anyway, who knows who thought of what, and this doesn't diminish anybody's achievements. I'll sort of point them all toward you, and I don't know. It's so hard to get them to stick. They close. Anybody who knows these guns knows that they do this. And I can only feel sorry for people who were, like I said, in those muddy trenches and had to deal with that. But aside from all that, hunting rifles are different from, military rifles, because it isn't absolutely imperative that everything happen the way it should happen when it's involving a hunting rifle, because in the end it's just a sport. Good to remember. I thought I'll take out this Mauser 96 as an example of a modern straight pull. And I ordered from Germany steel or Stahl action, I don't know, 3 years ago. I still don't have it, which is no criticism. Stuff goes wrong, but this 96 is somehow reminds me of the Ross. The bolt handle is too far forward. Everybody knows this. You can close it with your thumb, like the Fortner that we looked at before. And you can fire it. It's very slick. Reopening the action is effortless. It has those lugs like an M4 or something like that. It's very, very unique. I actually, every time I take out this rifle, I think what a fantastic design it really was. And it's the only straight pull where primary extraction is remarkably consistent and strong, because you have to get that brass out of that chamber. You all know this, and the 96 accomplishes that beautifully. I think maybe somebody makes this again. Some people wrote me about that, but I'm not sure who or where or when. I'm glad they do, because this really was far ahead of its time. Just a great action. Dual releases for the magazine. It has a nice magazine. The stock, maybe it could be walnut, but you can always replace the stock. So yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in. Anyway, that's a lot as usual that I had to say, but it is worth it to look at the Ross. The government of Canada had, I think, the right idea in going in the direction of what Sir Charles had to offer, but it all derailed because of these, what would be in manufacturing, minor things that need to be corrected. It's not hard to make a mechanism and a bolt so that it can't be assembled wrong. But anyway, we're talking about, a long time ago. But yeah, so for collectors, if you're interested in something from Canada, I can't think of a more interesting rifle than the Ross rifle. And this one, with this Swiss fantastic idea, I don't know if you could really own a better hunting rifle. This one works perfectly. You'll see I had to do all kinds of tricks and so on to get it to go. And I'm not really giving the complete story here, but it doesn't matter. You know, it's the meaning of the whole thing that matters. I hope you enjoy the video we made in the mountains. It's a remarkable action. And you know, I always prefer being in the out of doors, but it's not easy getting there. Anyway, I hope you like the segment from when we were at a much higher elevation. All right, take care. Well, quite an exciting video, at least for me. It took a while to find a raw sporter. You know, I advertise for them, and the people just don't want to sell Ross. In case you don't know, I'll read right off of the rifle. Ross Rifle Company, Quebec, Canada, 1905, and it says patented. This action, I guess a fellow by the name of Charles Ross came up with it and had any number of patents. And you're probably familiar with it as a Canadian military rifle, the Mark I and so on. I was always more interested in a sporter, and what tremendous luck I had. So this sporter is marked on the barrel, Bern, Müller, Zurich. And I looked up that name, that gun maker, and he made a very unique pistol and other custom firearms. It's an absolutely beautiful rifle to own and fire. You've all heard all these stories about Ross rifles, and naturally, you know, I've conducted my own rudimentary experiments, and I guess the lesson is, if you own a firearm or a machine of any kind, don't assemble it incorrectly is probably the main lesson. And you could read and watch, I'm sure, any number of videos. So I'll just talk about the great things about the Ross rifle. Very slick action, reminds me a lot of the 1905 Steyr. I hope that I have that right. One feature that the Ross and the Steyr share in common is if you remove the bolt, which you accomplish by pushing this down and taking the bolt out, it just comes straight back. This locking bolt head, which on the Ross has multiple locking surfaces, this is the 1910, the 1905 just has two, like a Mauser. On the Steyr and on this one, this bolt head is spring loaded, so it tends to spring back into the bolt when you try to put it back in the rifle. So you have to get used to kind of working carefully and making sure you hold it properly. But other than that, effortless, and it's smart. It's a smart rifle. I like everything about it. The trigger is good. Naturally, I took this one apart. It's secured by a screw through here, reminded me of a Tikka, and then two screws here. It's quite solidly retained. The recoil lug isn't so self-evident, but the stock on this one hasn't split. These sights and whatnot are probably from the gun maker in Zurich, as opposed to the Ross Rifle Company in Canada. Up here, so the barrel is secured in the front by this barrel band, and then this sling swivel. This isn't factory, I don't know, somebody put that on, but I left it because it's kind of not bad. And what's cool is this follower is actually on an arm that goes through the stock to the forend, and up here is a spring somewhere, and the spring pushes this long follower, so there's no spring under here like you would typically find on a bolt action. This particular one, this is the first time I have it out, and the caliber. So when I bought it, it didn't say anything. It says nothing on here except 7mm. When you take the stock off, it says 7x66. So I thought it might be a 7x65, or it could be a 7x66 Vom Hof. Anyway, I had to be creative with ammunition. You can see some people would call that primitive, you know, no butt plate or anything. But I've kind of always liked that. It's very simple and clean, but that's a personal preference thing, and they put some you know, decent checkering on the pistol grip cap. When you see this shape, this gentle curve, as I've said before on videos, that's an open grip. And for most people, if they're not familiar with it, because a lot of people go for the target grip, which is almost like a pistol grip, but for instinctive fast shooting, I think it was the British found that the open grip gives you more control than a straight grip. It looks elegant. Anyway, this particular stock is one of the most perfect stocks that I've handled. Not too much of a forehand. Sometimes the forehand is a great big bulky thing going way too far down the barrel, but this one has just about everything right. There are other things I've noticed naturally, but we've got some really heavy winds up in the mountains. You know, the weather changes up here so fast, it's amazing. But what we'll do is fire a couple of the rounds that I do have. I'll show you the front sight, which reminds me of an M14 that's up here, and it's very easy to hold and aim this rifle well. And then once again, I think that however old this is, people picked up the rifle, they had no idea what caliber it's for. It said 7mm, but no one knew what that really meant. So I was quite lucky in acquiring it, and with the right ammo, maybe I'd take it hunting if I can. This is the safety tab, it's self-evident, it even says safe on it. All right, we'll take a couple of shots and see how it does. Ejection is very positive. It's my last round. Yeah, I thought it would shoot high, so yeah, what can I say? Great rifle. Definitely worth owning a Ross rifle, whether you like the military or the sporting. The nice thing about owning the sporting is you get all the fascinating features of the action in a, you know, usable hunting rifle. Beautifully made. All right, thanks so much for watching, and take good care, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.